সো গুড আফটারনুন। লাঞ্চের পরের সেশন একটু সবাই ব্যস্ত রয়েছে, অনেকেই বাইরে আছেন। যাই হোক, আমাদের সেশনটা শুরু করতে হবে, নাহলে আমাদের লেট হয়ে যাবে। যাই হোক, আমাদের সেশন 3, এখানে আমাদের 3জন পেপার প্রেজেন্টার আছেন। এই সেশনটা চেয়ার করবেন ডক্টর হিয়া চ্যাটার্জি। আমি হিয়া চ্যাটার্জিকে অনুরোধ করবো ডায়েসে আসার জন্য। অ্যান্ড শেখ শাহিন, অধ্যাপক আলিয়া ইউনিভার্সিটি, ওনাকে আমি অনুরোধ করবো হিয়া চ্যাটার্জিকে বরণ করার জন্য। So Dr. Hiya Chatterjee is an assistant professor at the Department of English, Swarnamoyee Jogendranath Mahavidyalaya, Vidyasagar University, and she did her Ph.D. from University of Kolkata under Nati Ranjan Chatterjee, and he actually completed the same year. Her research interests are South Asian studies, queer theory, gender studies. She has presented papers in various national and international seminars and has published articles and book chapters in reputed journals. With this few by note, I'm giving this session to Dr. Hiya Chatterjee.
Thank you, Hassan, for inviting me, and I would like to thank the organizers of the event base for organizing such a conference which is so relevant at this particular point. So without further ado, I would like to begin with our session because we are already running this is behind schedule. I think we have 2 speakers today instead of 2. One is absent, so we have a little more time than expected, but I would still want the speakers to keep your presentations limited to 15 minutes, and then we can have a discussion of 5 to 7 minutes at the end of the session. Instead of having discussions at the end of each paper, I think that would be better. So, the speakers, I would like to invite both speakers on the dais, please. Sajda Chowdhury and Rubina Khatun. First speaker is Sajda Chowdhury, Assistant Professor and Head, English Department, Raipur Block, Mahavidyalaya, Bankura, West Bengal. So, around 12 minutes I will give you. Thank you, ma'am, for your warm introduction. Thank you, conveners and organizers of BASE, for inviting me to speak today. The title of my topic is Claiming Quiet Corners in the Margins, Safe Spaces and Dialogic Platforms as Resistance for Bengali Muslim Women. The lived realities of Bengali Muslim women embody a complex interplay of identity, culture, and oppression. While their experiences are marked by diversity, shaped by class, region, education, and generational differences, they remain bound together by a shared cultural heritage that reflects both Bengali traditions and Islamic practices. Yet within this shared cultural framework, these women often find themselves subjected to multiple layers of marginalization. On one hand, patriarchal structures impose restrictions on their autonomy, silencing their voices and limiting their opportunities. On another, they face Islamophobia in broader society, where their religious identity becomes a site of prejudice and exclusion. Compounding these challenges is the less discussed but equally significant reality of systemic matriarchal oppression within certain social contexts, where hierarchical gendered norms perpetuate inequities even among women themselves. Taken together, these forces create a condition of triple marginalization, a state in which Bengali Muslim women are simultaneously constrained by patriarchy, stigmatized by Islamophobia, and undermined by intra-gender hierarchies. So if you all can see my slide here, so I have looked at the lived reality of Bengali Muslim women, and we are looking at the complex interplay of identity, culture, and oppression here. We all know that the experiences that mark the lived reality of Bengali Muslim women are diverse. They are shaped by class, region, like I've said, but they have this shared cultural heritage. Just as our esteemed speaker before, he spoke about syncretic cultural traditions, right? So we know that Bengali traditions and Islamic practices are something that are so syncretic in a Bengali Muslim's life, and especially in Bengali Muslim women's life. But what we need to know is that we are also facing some kind of a triple marginalization, if we may say so. So first of all, being a Muslim in India, of course, you are in a very marginalized position. You are then, of course, oppressed by patriarchal norms. And after that, in today's current scenario, now that you are a Bengali, now you are labeled, stigmatized, sometimes as Rohingya, sometimes as Bangladeshi, sometimes as also anti-national. So even the language today has become some kind of a barrier, some kind of a factor of marginalization. That is the reason why I call that Bengali Muslim women particularly are facing some kind of a triple marginalization. Next slide, please, Hassan. The matrix of domination and Bengali Muslim women. Patricia Hill Collins, in her theory of matrix of domination, offers a framework for understanding how multiple systems of oppression, such as gender, religion, class, ethnicity, and cultural identity, intersect to shape lived experiences of inequality and privilege. For Bengali Muslim women, these overlapping structures create a complex web of power relations that influence their position in society across four interconnected domains: structural, disciplinary, hegemonic, and interpersonal. When Patricia Hill Collins was talking about her theory of matrix of domination, the analogy she gave was that, like, supposing if you are driving on the road and there is a traffic coming from all sides. So that is kind of an intersection of traffic, and you are puzzled by that. So Bengali Muslim women, if we look at that theory and the situation of the Bengali Muslim women in today's concept, we will see that how gender, religion, language, ethnicity, of course, patriarchal oppression is there, is all working in an intersecting way to create that kind of inequality and oppression in her life. I would also want to say, which might sound a bit controversial as well, that in a Bengali Muslim society, I'm also a Bengali Muslim, and I know, even though I might not personally face such situations, but I have seen women around me facing such situations, there is also a certain matriarchal oppression. So women bringing down women. Women, mothers-in-law, aunties, reflecting on their generational trauma and passing it down to their next generation. Eta korte parbe na, amra eta korini. So that kind of a scenario. So if we look at the four domains in context, structural domain, so Bengali Muslim women encounter inequality through institutional, organizational structures. We all know that. There are laws, policies, political hierarchies, and also representation in every way, where you find very few representations in the political and social structures and institutions. Disciplinary domain. Mechanisms of control such as bureaucratic systems, surveillance, discriminatory practices in education, employment, reinforce their exclusion and regulate their participation in public life. There is, of course, the hegemonic domain, like I was talking about, cultural and ideological narratives, including stereotypes of Bengali Muslims like outsiders. Our esteemed Dr. Saifullah sir, he spoke about Islamophobia. He spoke about how that this is something that we all know, and yet we must speak. So that is something that we have to know, that in terms of even being outsiders or illegal immigrants or legitimizing inequality or perpetuations of marginalizations, we still have to talk about it. We still have to understand and represent Bengali Muslim and particularly Bengali Muslim women. There is, of course, the interpersonal domain. Everyday interactions, whether through prejudice, communal bias, gender discrimination, shape conscious behavior, influencing how Bengali Muslim navigate family, community, and public spaces. Hassan, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. For Bengali Muslim women, safe spaces are environments that ensure both physical and emotional security while fostering empowerment, community, solidarity, and mutual support free from judgment or harm. If we look at today's Bengali Muslim women's community, we hardly have any forum where Bengali Muslim women can come together. We have diniyats, we have teachings, Islamic preachings, where there is one women Islamic speaker, she is preaching, others are listening, and then we go back home. Where is our voice? Where is our platform to deliver? Where is our platform to say that what we want to say, what we face at home, in our institutions, in our workplaces, or simply to share our experiences? Is there a forum? Is there a community for Bengali Muslim women? No. So these are the safe spaces that I'm talking about. Safe spaces for Bengali Muslims women have to be free from judgment or harm. We cannot be judged or be misunderstood when Bengali Muslim women form communities and forums to discuss about themselves. They may take the form of women-only areas in educational, professional, and public settings, as well as community-based initiatives offering counseling, legal aid, and faith-sensitive guidance. Today, if a woman from my community wants a divorce, but she is not well equipped in terms of legal aids, where will she go? She wants to go to women. Do we have such a community or a safe space where she can be helped by women? This is a pertinent question that Bengali Muslim women have to question themselves, and they have to come together and ask themselves, what kind of safe spaces am I talking about? Academic and professional contexts, we all know, women-only forums, rooms that acknowledge cultural and religious needs of Bengali Muslim women, including privacy and protection from harassment, discrimination. We have anti-ragging cells, but we have women's cells, but it's still lacking. There's so much advancement that still needs to go on. Public and community settings, women-only platforms, women-only communities, forums. In public transport, reserved parking spaces. Only 2 days back, I was reading in a newspaper clipping that some mall has started a reserved parking space for women. I think that is very important, especially because women drivers are still harassed, and it is not something new that we are facing. Specialized support services, programs for survivors of violence. There are so many women from our community who are survivors of violence, who are marginalized. But where is the forum or the safe space to give them that support? Yes. So there is a few core areas that I would like to discuss. Empowerment and system. Why do we need such safe spaces? Why do we need such communities and forums? These safe spaces nurture belonging and solidarity, enabling women to share experiences and build networks of support without fear of stigma or judgment. Access to resources. Safe spaces often provide essential services. So if we are making a safe space for Bengali Muslim women today, we need to provide those essential services, including counseling, legal assistance, and of course, that is a different topic for a different day, that how we are supposed to do that. That is a very advanced stage of thought right now, but we can, of course, have a day one for everything. Information on rights, health, religiously sensitive support systems, and intersectional awareness, effective safe spaces, recognizing diverse realities of Bengali Muslim women. Because since time is short, I will not get into the details. I'll straight away move on to the challenges and considerations here. There are, of course, many challenges, especially when it comes to women. Women face a lot more challenges than men, and I think this should be acceptable by all. Inclusivity is a challenge here. Who all should be included? Should it only be a women only? Yes, thank you. A women only space? There are questions about sustainability, whether this is a long-term viable option. How do we fund ourselves? How do we consistently engage with our community? And how do we make a mark beyond these physical boundaries? Whether this can actually have this broader societal transformation. Next slide, please. So safe spaces are avenues as empowerment and self-expression. This can help us for economic independence. Bengali Muslim women can help themselves by being independent. They can have access to media and information through such communities and forums. And of course, they can have challenging stereotypes. Before I end, the last paragraph of my talk here is the expanded representation of Bengali Muslim women here. The expanded representation of Bengali Muslim women in both public and private spheres is essential for advancing genuine social justice and equality. It challenges entrenched stereotypes, enables the significant community to contribute fully to society, and affirms their rightful place in shaping collective futures. We are talking about a lot of challenges and considerations here, but the biggest challenge that can come when we are talking about creating a safe space is from the gender that women love most, the men. The men in their homes. Whenever you are stepping out to give time to yourself, you will definitely be questioned. কোথায় যাচ্ছ? কেন যাচ্ছ? When you are talking about a safe space, the question that men will come and complain is that, is it about us? এটা কি আমাদের ব্যাপারে? So it is not about men. It can begin as a criticism against men, but eventually women will find their rooting. Women will find their identity in these self-help groups, in these community and forums. So this is the dire need of society today, that we make safe spaces for women. So dear men, let your women take the center stage. Let your women come to the forefront and allow them to have their own time. And please go back and think today. Ask your mothers, ask your sisters that, Mom, do you have 1 hour of your spare time that you devote entirely to yourself, which is absolutely not related to my well-being or to the family's well-being? And 99% of the times you will hear the answer is N or no. So that is how I would like to end my discussion here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sajda, for sticking to the time and for a very brave paper, I must say. I would now like to invite the next speaker, Rubina Khatun, to present her paper.
Good afternoon, everyone.
শোনা যাচ্ছে? প্রথমেই আমার পেপারটা শুরু করার আগে একটা কথা বলতে চাই। যেহেতু আজকের আলোচনা বাঙালিদের সংকট নিয়ে, সেই সংকটময় পরিস্থিতির বর্তমানে তার একটা বৈশিষ্ট্যটাকে বর্তমানে কোথায় গিয়ে দাঁড়িয়েছে এবং তার প্রমাণ হিসেবে আমি কিছু সংখ্যাগত তথ্য দিয়ে আলোচনাটা করব আজকে। তো আমার আজকে পেপার হচ্ছে ডাউরি টু ডোমেস্টিক অপারেশন, আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং ইন্টিমেট পার্টনার ভায়োলেন্স অ্যামং ম্যারিড মুসলিম উইমেন in Indo-Bangladesh border area. The introduction part. Dowry or Jautuk is an unconditional gift or practice of transfer of wealth by the bride's family to the groom's family during marriage. The definitions of dowry is mentioned as any property or valuable security given or agreed to be given either directly or indirectly by one party to a marriage to the other party to the marriage. This practice is widely prevalent in India and Bangladesh and reinforces the patriarchal norms of the society. Even if the theory of dowry is an unconditional payment, the reality is completely different. The dowry has become an instrument of oppression used by groom's family to financially exploit the bride and her parental family. In extreme cases, dowry demand, if unmet, leads to violence and traumatic death of brides. Interestingly, the practice of dowry is legally prohibited in both India and Bangladesh. যেহেতু সময়ের সংক্ষিপ্ত আমি লিটারেচার রিভিউটাকে স্কিপ করছি সাবজেক্ট This paper aims to discuss the stigma surrounding domestic violence with a specific emphasis on the role of dowry in perpetuating intimate partner violence and subjugating women within the institutions of marriage for Muslim women along international border areas of West Bengal and Bangladesh. Next. During the survey, the married Muslim women in the age group of 15 years to 49 years were asked to a comprehensive set of questions covering various aspects of their lives, including socioeconomic and demographic variables and health-related variables. The experiences of violence data of the target group were collected through a separate questionnaires where women have to inform if they have suffered from the types of abuse mentioned in the questionnaire. Next. এটা আমার রিসার্চ এরিয়া যেটা আমি বোথ ইন্ডিয়া এন্ড বাংলাদেশ উভয় সাইডে 200 রেসপন্ডেন্টকে মুসলিম উইমেন ম্যারিড মুসলিম উইমেনদের সার্ভে করেছি। যেটা ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে হচ্ছে সাউদার্ন পার্টে হচ্ছে নর্থ 24% থেকে নিয়েছিলাম এবং নর্দার্ন পার্টে কোচবিহার ডিস্ট্রিক্টটাকে নিয়েছিলাম। বোথ সাইডে বাংলাদেশের ক্ষেত্রে হচ্ছে খুলনা ডিভিশনের মধ্যে যশোর আর রংপুর ডিভিশনের মধ্যে লালমনিরহাট জেলা থেকে 100 রেসপন্ডেন্ট নিয়েছিলাম। নেক্সট হচ্ছে ম্যাপ। Next. This section briefly describes some of the variables that directly relate to the dowry and intimate partner violence. First, the level of education. The graphical representation shows that the literacy rate among Muslim women in border areas of both countries is low. In West Bengal, 33% of respondents are illiterate and in Bangladesh, 38.5%. The number is highest from class 1 to 10 and the attainment in higher education is very low. At the undergraduate level in West Bengal and Bangladesh at 2.5% and 2% respectively. At the postgraduate level, the number drops further to 1.5% in both countries. Next. The second is age of marriage of the respondent. According to primary data, West Bengal, India, 81% of women are married before 18 years. And in Bangladesh, 87%. It's a matter of potential concern that child marriage not only causes health risks but also limits individuals' opportunities for personal development. Third, principal occupations of the respondent. The graphical presentation elaborates the principal work of the respondent. Of this, 24.5% in West Bengal and 73.5% in Bangladesh are engaged in household work. 30.5% and 14% respectively are engaged in household agricultural land. On the other hand, 45% in West Bengal are engaged in wage labor, while only 12.5% in Bangladesh. Next. Monthly family income. Based on the primary data, the monthly income of most Muslim families in border areas of both countries is below 10,000 rupees. Next. Dowry and then meher percentage. Although dowry is prohibited in Muslim law, the use of dowry in Bangladesh and West Bengal has now become more important than then. As the transactions of dowry seems to take place immediately or before the marriage. This study reveals similar data where 54.5% of Muslim women in West Bengal paid dowry at marriage and only 21% received then. On the other hand, in case of Bangladesh, 73% of respondents paid dowry and only 15% marriages had transaction of then. Types of violence that respondents have faced. The details of incidents of different types of violence indicate that irrespective of place of residence, the overwhelming majority of Muslim married women reported that they experienced verbal and emotional violence in marital relationship. The staggering high incidence of verbal and emotional abuse of women in marital relationships is a matter of great concern. Respondent opinion and attitude towards violence. The next data table shows that due to their extreme vulnerabilities, these women often feel compelled to negotiate with violence to ensure their safety, leading them to acquiesce and submit to threats rather than resist. This may explain why they may report lower levels of physical violence from their husband, as they may prioritize avoiding physical harms over asserting their rights. Most disconcertingly, in the studies sample, women justify wife beating in the family for various reasons, like when the wives often unintentionally tolerate their husband's abusive behavior, placing themselves in a vulnerable and disempowered position, which can perpetuate a cycle of harm and reinforce harmful gender dynamics. This incident highlights a deep-seated social problem where harmful gender dynamics and stereotypes disempower women and perpetuate abuse relationships. Next, the association between dowry and payment and incident of violence. এটা আমি একটা ইকোনমেট্রিক অ্যানালিসিস করেছিলাম, যেটা ক্রেমার ভি যেটা রিপোর্ট দেখাচ্ছে যে -0.338 or -0.312 যে নেগেটিভ রিলেশন এসেছে, এখান থেকে বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে কিভাবে হচ্ছে ডাউরির সাথে ফিজিক্যাল ভায়োলেন্স যে যে রিলেশনশিপে ডাউরির কম দেওয়া হয়েছে, দেখা যাচ্ছে যে সেখানে ফিজিক্যাল ভায়োলেন্স রেটটা অনেকটা বেশি। সিমিলারলি যদি আমরা সেক্সুয়াল ভায়োলেন্সের দিকে দেখি, একই রেজাল্ট এসেছে যে ডাউরি যে রিলেশন হচ্ছে ডাউরি কম দেওয়া হয়েছে, সেই রিলেশন হচ্ছে সেক্সুয়াল ভায়োলেন্সের পরিমাণটা অনেকটা বেশি। The exploratory analysis complemented each other and concluded that in the surveyed area of West Bengal and Bangladesh, dowry payment is present and it's acting as a protective factor to both physical and sexual violence. The result seems counterintuitive, as though lots of literature pointed out that dowry demand are highly associated with violence and dowry death. However, there are few studies that also observed results similar to my findings. The studies by Srinivas and Brady and Kelvy and Kester also found similar results. According to Kelvy and Kester, the transfer of resources to marital family of bride via dowry helps to improve her bargaining power, hence deter the incidence of violence. The relationship between age at marriage and the dowry is complex. This study observed significant relationship between age of marriageable girl and prevalence of dowry transactions with older age corresponding to higher rates of dowry exchange. Buchmar et al. Shows that the tendency to pay dowry decreases with higher education, but the amount of dowry increases with increasing age of marriage. This study also found that the girl's family often seek out educated and well-settled husband, which may increase dowry demand. Another reason is that younger girls are more desirable in the marriage market because they are perceived to be more fertile and loyal. The initial findings of this study suggest that marrying girls at a young age is motivated by the perceptions that older unmarried girls have defects, leading to higher dowry expectation. This research has shown that domestic violence rates are much lower in families with children under the age of 5. This is because shared care of young children reduce violence by increasing responsibility and cooperation. Research has consistently shown that women participation in paid work is associated with lower incidence of domestic violence. This study did not differ with lower rates of domestic violence reported among women who are involved in paid work. The reason is that women employment provides economic independence and reduce dependence on their partner's income. It also increases bargaining power within the family, enabling them fight against abusive behavior and negotiate for their rights. However, this study found that women who work unpaid family labor on their own agricultural land experience higher rates of domestic violence. This is because unpaid work in agriculture deprives women of their economic autonomy, making them more dependent on their husband and increasing the risk of domestic violence. Since there is a lack of paid work for women in Indo-Bangladesh border region, women unpaid work in agriculture may limit their bargaining power within the family, even when their labor is adding towards collective family well-being. This study found that women from financially disadvantaged and deprived families are significantly more likely to be victims of violence. The poor living condition coupled with lack of access to basic amenities in border areas ignite the risk of domestic violence. This paper revealed a very disturbing fact. Majority of the respondents justify intimate partner violence, indicating a low self-esteem. Women want to build a strong emotional connection even with their abusive husband because they are completely financially dependent on their partners and are afraid of losing financial support. Also, women with low self-esteem believe that they deserve to be abused or it's their fault that engages their spouses to become abused. In addition, primary data shows that they are respondents who justify intimate partner violence or wife beating were less likely to experience sexual violence. This may be because these women who justified violence are submissive to their husband and conform and comply with the demands of husband in the time of intimate relationship. Finally, the data revealed that physical violence and sexual violence rate are lower in Bangladesh compared to India. This is because it emerged from observation during the survey that respondents in Bangladesh view domestic violence as a very personal and private matter and were less reluctant to reveal. Also, this study found that verbal and emotional violence rates are extremely high in both India and Bangladesh. This is the matter of serious concern. Emotional violence are subtle yet deliberate and manipulative method of control perpetuated by husbands seeking dominance over their counterpart. Systematic humiliation, intimidation, and insult aimed at instilling fear among wives in a marital relationship gradually leads to the erosion of confidence and agency of women and disturb their mental balance. However, understanding emotional violence, complexity, and nuance is crucial as it can be difficult to detect even for the victims of external stakeholders. Basically, primary data unveil that women are actually very apprehensive about divorce and losing financial support from their husband. This factor compels from them to endure all kinds of domestic abuse. One thing is clear from the research that women try to secure space and happiness even in the subjugated situation through compliance and silence, which is most distressing and worrisome issues. Thank you. The next. এটা হচ্ছে ইন্দো বাংলাদেশ বর্ডার এরিয়ার ফটো, যেটা হচ্ছে এই বর্ডার ফেন্সের উপরেই জামা কাপড় মেলে দেওয়া, মানে একদমই উঠানের মধ্যে দিয়ে মাঝখান দিয়ে একটা বাড়ি, একটা দাদা হচ্ছে বাংলাদেশি, একজন হচ্ছে ইন্ডিয়ান, বাড়ির মধ্যে এগুলো সবই। এটা মানে গ্রামের সিচুয়েশন, যারা মাইগ্রেন্ট লেবার তাদের বাড়ি, যারা বিদেশে থাকেন মালয়েশিয়া ইন্দোনেশিয়াতে, আর এটা হচ্ছে যারা বাংলাদেশে মানে ওখানকার যারা ইনকাম করেন তাদের। এটা হচ্ছে দুপুরের লাঞ্চ, মানে ওই যে কর্নারে যেটা, এটা মেখলিগঞ্জের ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে। এটা মানে অনেকেই মানে বিশ্বাস করতে চায় না যে এরকম লাঞ্চও এখনো কেউ করতে পারে। আর পোড়া আলু দিয়ে চিড়ে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you so much, Rubina, for an extremely informative and insightful paper. So I think both the papers had a lot of things in common, which was again follow up on what Dr. Sajda spoke on, the types of silence and how silence, these two papers I think highlighted how silence can be gendered and what can we do in order to dispel these forms of silences from the society. So Sajda spoke about the need for creating safe spaces where women can freely talk with each other. And both of these papers, they argued how there is internalized patriarchy among Muslim women. And as we all know, that patriarchy is not just men oppressing women, it is a system wherein a certain set of rules or a certain section is privileged over the other. So if the marginalized or the oppressed section does not support the privileged section, then that system will never last. So obviously it is with the help and support of women that patriarchy has lasted this long. So we need women to step up, but again, it is not the work of individual women. Collectively, women need to come together to speak, and there is a need to create these spaces where we celebrate solidarity, we celebrate women's alliances, not just individual women rising to success. When we talk about how women are oppressed, the most common answer we hear is, oh, but she has that we have a Muslim chief minister, or we have a Muslim politician, or she is so successful, and then how can you say that Muslims or women in general are oppressed? Currently, the president of India is a woman, but that is not the answer. These are exceptional women, and we are not talking about exceptions. It has to be the rule in general, right? So I think these two papers highlighted that, and we also talk about intersectional identities and how that is extremely important, intersectional feminism, and that approach is extremely important in order to understand intimate partner violence and different forms of violence that pervade in different communities. So I want to thank both the speakers for highlighting such important issues, and we are almost we are running out of time. So if there are any questions from the audience, yes.
Thank you. Nice presentation. Our question, Rubina, madam.